Reborn as a white snake in the mountains, I suppressed my humanity to survive in this harsh environment. Every day I stole sparrows and bird eggs or boxed with rabbits. After 50 years, I finally became a local tyrant, but I also became numb and cold-blooded gradually, forgetting the memories of my past life until that day. A colorful duckman fell into the mountain waters, guided by the last shred of humanity left in my head. I saved him and carried him down the mountain. I thought that would be the end of it, but after 2.5 days that guy showed up before me again. First he pulled out a few boiled eggs, and then kept bowing to me over and over again. Thank you for saving my life, otherwise my wife and kids wouldn't survive. I have one more request. I hope the snake god will allow me to gather herbs in these mountains. Hearing that, I was speechless and found him quite greedy. I just turned around and left, but when the colorful duckman saw that I didn't bite him, he assumed I had agreed. From then on, I coiled up in the treetops, watching him gather tiny herb seedlings, and slowly build up a small herb patch over time. Occasionally we'd run into each other. He'd shamelessly sit down and tell me that he'd gathered more medicine lately, and his family had plenty to eat. He kept insisting he had to thank me and on and on. Eventually I couldn't stand listening to him talk anymore, and preferred to hide from him. Every day, just like that, half a year passed. The seedlings that the colorful duckman had planted had finally grown. He was harvesting more and more herbs every day, making the villagers jealous. That day, as usual, I was breathing out clouds and mist, practicing my abilities, when suddenly I sensed 3 warm presences sneaking into the herb field. I immediately flew into a rage and thought that colorful duckman had brought people here without my permission. He really treated this place like it was his own backyard. Furious, I headed down towards the village at the foot of the mountain. But just as I made my way out of the herb field, I saw that colorful mouth. Both of his hands were tightly clutching the leg of a villager. This is my medicine, you can't take it. That was a skinny villager. Hearing this, he kicked him even harder. Since when does this mountain belong to you? This is our territory. You must have a lot of nerve to try and steal our medicine like this. The other 2 just stood watching from the side, laughing gleefully, and reached out their hands to yank the herbs right out. When the colorful duckman saw this, he had to let go of the skinny man's legs and throw his arms open to protect the 2 most precious herbs he refused to give up, no matter how brutally the 3 of them beat him. Watching this unfold, I was a bit confused. Over just a few ordinary herbs, did they really have to resort to violence? But just as he was getting completely carried away with his rage, he saw that the skinny man was red with fury, and his veins were bulging. He violently pulled out a woodcutter's axe and slammed it right into the duckman's back. The axe was heavy and not very fast, but it still tore a deep, completely froze. They were just ordinary mountain folk who had never even thought of killing a fellow villager. What are you guys so scared of? It's just us here. Who's gonna know if you 2 even did anything? He wanted to drag them into this with him, but for a long time, no one answered. When he turned around out of habit, he saw suddenly his throat was squeezed tight, as if he were being strangled. Then, a sharp stabbing pain, snake venom, surged through his neck into his body. Not even a miracle cure could save him. Now, after letting go of the thin man, I raised my head and looked at the other 2. They were already scared to death, crawling away. In utter terror, I didn't chase after them, and felt no remorse. 20 years of eating raw meat and drinking blood had long since erased my humanity. Duckman looked at me in absolute horror. Maybe only now did he realize that this white snake was actually a wild beast. After I threw the man's body into a pit and returned to the herb garden, I was surprised to find that there were fewer duckman flowers in his eyes whenever he looked at me. Later on, he simply stopped talking altogether. The weather gradually grew colder. Once Duckman had waited for all the herbs to mature, he dug them up and never returned. His little herb garden slowly went wild, and I went back to my regular life, except that I trained much harder every single day. In the 2nd year, Duckman came by once, but he only took a quick look from a distance and left. But what I didn't know was that rumors were already spreading on the outside that a white snake lived in the mountains. The giant white snake had turned into a spirit. It was even rumored that I had some kind of weird growth on my head that loved to devour humans, which made it so that nobody dared to enter this forest anymore. And so another 10 years passed. My body grew stronger. On that day, I suddenly felt a presence entering the mountains. It was the duckman. He was still exactly the same as 10 years ago. Stumbling and staggering along, 10 years had made this man who had risked his life back then to gather herbs in the Ding Mountain. He probably couldn't climb any cliffs anymore. 10 years have passed. I never expected to see you again. I raised my head. I looked at the old man who wasn't babbling anymore. An's inexplicable emotion flashed in his eyes. I've really become a useless old skeleton, he said. I can't make any money for the family and have to rely on my son to support me. Then, in the spring of the year before last, he went to heaven in peace. There was no food. He wouldn't listen to advice, starving himself, and only lasted 7 days. I know. He wanted to save the food for the children. I listened quietly. For the first time, I didn't find him long-winded. This old man who had worked hard his entire life to feed his family couldn't make them wealthy in the end. I didn't understand why, but it is clear to me that social classes here have been set in stone for a long time. More chaotic years for most people. It is just too hard to live a good life. In the afternoon, the duckman left. His days are numbered. I could smell the scent of death on him. Maybe he will be happy to save some food for his son's family, but I had a sense of urgency. The taste of death is awful. I don't ever want to die again. And so a white snake hatched, driven by the fear of death. Desperately, I began to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to take it all in until a few years later I ran into a strange problem. I don't know when it started, but huge snakes kept invading my territory. Even when I used my massive size to roughly throw them out the very next day, another one would show up, which really annoyed me. I couldn't even cultivate properly, and in the end I had no choice but to go check out what ancient human society looked like, but I never expected to witness goodbyes and death with my own eyes again. 2 days later, I slithered over to a forest near a village. My very first impression of this village was sheer poverty. On the hillside, a few thatched huts stood, and by the stream were some rice paddies. A skinny yellow dog ran along the ridge and actually just planned to look around and head back to the deep mountains. Who would have thought that? Before leaving, I'd meet a little girl about 6 or 7 years old with pigtails. She wore a faded coarse cloth dress and was skipping toward the back mountain to catch butterflies and pick wild flowers. Normally it's pretty safe around here. There are no wild beasts, but today an old 3-legged wolf happened to be prowling around right when the little girl was terrified. I dashed past, coiled around the old wolf tightly, and then squeezed my body hard until his bones snapped. The little girl sat on the ground, blankly watching my struggle with the old wolf. She wasn't nearly as terrified as the herb gatherer back then, who had almost fainted. Instead, she just stared at me for a long time. Finally, she asked, curiously, are you the snake god of the back mountain? I was a bit speechless. I hadn't expected the rumors from back then. This snake god, I wondered somewhat, speechless as I hadn't expected to hear those old rumors. Said twice to confirm that it was true. The girl saw my reaction. Her surprised little mouth went completely round with awe. Oh, you can understand what I'm saying? I nodded. Again twice. The girl was completely amazed. A giant snake that can understand human speech, she sighed. How incredible. After a brief pause, she asked another question. Are you going to eat me, Papa says? The beasts in the mountains eat humans. I shook my head. Even though I'd love to scare her, I've stayed in these mountains for so long. Finally, I've found someone to talk to. It wouldn't be right to scare her away. The little girl happily ran over and touched my scales. Wow, so beautiful, whiter than the great merciful King of Anja. So I, who originally planned to return to the deep mountains, stayed near the village. The girl named Doer often came to chat with me. Whenever she got tired, she would just lie down on me and fell asleep. A few months flew by in a flash. On this day, Doer came, running over and sat down on me. I'm so hungry. The grain at home was taken by the city lord, supposedly as a tribute. But Doer is really hungry. I see. The people of this era are mostly organized into clans. Clan chiefs and elders are the local rulers of the village, distributing and selling land. Even murder and arson happen entirely at their whim. Imperial power doesn't reach down to the village. That's what is meant by that. When the clan chief and the elders of one's own clan fiercely plunder poor families, can't resist at all. After thinking for a moment, I turned around and crawled into the forest, and under Doer's longing gaze I dragged out a small wild boar. Wow, is this for me? Doer saw me nut. Her eyes curved into crescents. She ran home shouting with joy. But the next day the news spread through the village. After they had some food, Doer's father wasn't stingy. He sent meat to several households that were also suffering from grain shortages. These villagers, live on the edge of the 1,000 great mountains, only by sticking together. First, everyone said Doer is just lucky. But once the wild boar meat was gone and Doer found 2 pheasants in the backyard again, Doer's parents began to wonder, though they didn't say much. When Doer knew there would soon be nothing left to eat at home, she actually brought back a wolf. Now, the villagers couldn't take it anymore. How could a young girl possibly encountering a wolf in its prime? Dozens of villagers surrounded the wolf carcass on the hillside, arguing Doer stood in the center, lowering her head and saying nothing, even though this food had helped the villagers get through the tough times. But this whole thing was too eerie. If they eat it, they might actually burn Doer as a demon. Doer, what is going on with this wolf? Doer lowered her head and fidgeted with her fingers. Not a word. Who sent it? Could it be a hero passing through our village? The hero Doer's father spoke of referred to the martial artist traveling across the land. But Doer just kept shaking her head. Now Doer's father had to intimidate her. Doer, you have to tell the truth. Doer started crying out loud and finally confessed everything. Deep in the woods, I sighed to myself and thought it over. I decided to show myself anyway to see how the villagers would react. This terrified the crowd. Someone screamed out loud, "Look, a white snake." Everyone looked in that direction and saw Doer run forward crying and hug me. Tears poured down like crazy. I flicked my tongue and gently rubbed against her cheek. It was a comforting gesture. After showing myself and making my presence known, I turned around and slithered back into the woods. I looped back around and watched things unfold from the other side. When I saw that the villagers didn't hurt Doer, I was relieved. Later on, the legend of the snake goddess arose. In the village, some villagers even brought yellow paper and candles. They even burned incense at the place where I had appeared, not just to beg for food, but also to pray for good weather in the coming year. That was all well and good, but the most absurd part was that some people said, "Husband, is that really my job to worry about over the next few days?" I brought the village wild game every few days. But this good fortune didn't last long. The strange events in the mountain village soon caught the attention of outsiders. On that day, Doer ran up the mountain. She ran and screamed, "Master, run fast. Someone here says they want to catch and sell you. A lot of hunters have come and also people riding big horses. Dad asked me to tell you to get out of here quickly." I nodded, turned around, and slithered deep into the mountains. Dew breathed a sigh of relief. She waved at my fading figure while on the other side many people entered the village. Most of them were hunters and guards with swords. Word was the city's clan leader heard about my existence. They immediately brought in hunters ready to head into the mountains himself, the young and old. Villagers fell to their knees. They begged the clan leader to spare the serpent goddess, but instead they got a severe beating. In the end, the clan leader paid off a few. The hunting squad marched grandly into the mountains. White snakes are rare enough as it is, especially one as big as me with a soul that's even rarer. Bringing me back would be a guaranteed profit, whether kept as a gift or sold for cash. But these people have forgotten the notorious reputation of the 1,000 Mountains. It wasn't named that for nothing. In a valley, a group of people was slowly making their way forward. After spotting them from a distance, I turned around and slithered away, intentionally leaving behind a strong scent. When I saw how excited the hunting dogs were getting, a look of joy washed over the clan leader's face. "Everyone give it your all. We will catch that giant snake soon." Everyone got excited at the thought of catching it. With a massive reward on the line, there are always brave souls. The exhausted troop picked up the pace again and entered the forest. It was eerily silent all around. Not a single bird or beast could be heard, and not even a mouse was in sight. This overwhelming silence made the hounds in the troop uneasy. Discovery. The clan leader stepped forward. Pointing his finger, he showed them a few strange tall clay pillars that were taller than a human. He recalled seeing many of them along the way. The clan leader instinctively felt that something was off. Just as he was about to order the troop to move quickly, my tail had already picked up a large rock and hurled it with great force. It crashed hard against the clay pillars. With a loud crack, a small piece of the mud pillars chipped off, but nothing else happened. The crowd was stunned, suspecting that someone had set an ambush, so they formed a circle. They stood there tense and on edge for a long time. These people would never be able to imagine that they could have saved their lives if they had only turned around and run for their lives when the stone landed. But now it's way too late. In the next moment, pouring out from the pillars of life like a gushing spring was a black stream. Ants as big as thumbs swarmed out. They instantly turned into a sea of black, swallowing those greedy bastards whole. I walked on. Everyone who was lucky enough to escape went completely insane. The 10,000 Mountains proved once again with spilled blood that they were nothing to mess with when they saw a few dozen people head into the mountains, and not even 10 of them make it out alive. People start to get the message. From then on, not even the herb gatherers dared to go up there. At the same time, the villagers finally realized that I wasn't some fool they could push around. They loved playing their little games to get others to do their dirty work, but now they were absolutely terrified of me. I knew that I shouldn't interact too much with the pillars of life, otherwise it would start to drain their life force. So I decided to retreat deep into the mountains, not to return until 9 years later. I found myself back at the village. Maybe it was fate that brought us together again. Just as I reached the back of the hill, I saw a solitary figure standing there, lost in thought. The little girl had grown up, but her scent hadn't changed at all. If you could overlook the calluses on her hands, she was all the way to her waist. Out here in the country, she was an absolute beauty. Suddenly, she seemed to sense something. She spun around and saw the white figure she had missed for so long. The white snake, just like when she was a child, she came running toward me and threw her arms around me, laughing through her tears. She cried out, heartbroken that I'd been gone for so many years. Night fell. The stars sparkled. Doer sat with her back, leaned against me on the grass. Her big eyes and my tongue stared together. Up at the stars. Actually, I can't even see the stars. At this altitude, there are only clouds, even after cultivating. Nothing has changed, but that doesn't stop me from pretending. I'm getting married. Brother Wong from the village is a very good man. I really like him, but I don't want to marry him. Last month, Guanwei came to our village, saw me, and said he wanted me as his concubine. I know that a concubine has no real status. Guanwei is as old as my father, 40, but the village is poor. Dig up grassroots and peel tree bark just to eat. Guanwei is different. His family gets to eat meat every day. No need to worry about starving. But my feelings were in a bit of a turmoil. I know he just wants to work hard to prove that he's right. The day after tomorrow, I will marry White Snake. Can you escort me to my wedding? I nodded. The starry night was brilliant. The helpless crying on the hill carried far, far away. On the day of the wedding, there were no pipes or drums, and no one was truly happy. A small sit-in chair arrived and picked Doer up. She only took a small bundle with her. Doer's parents wept bitterly, refusing to let go. On the hill, not far away, a young man knelt on the ground and cried bitterly. It was Brother Wong, whom she had spoken of. He probably cursed himself for being useless. Maybe he hated Guanwei for ruining a good girl, but there was nothing he could do. He could only watch as the seat-in chair carried his beloved away. Carried the girl away. Inside the palanquin, Doer pulled back the curtain with one field, spotting the tall, white figure standing quietly, and on her pretty tear-stained face a joyful smile appeared. Maybe she had betrayed Wong, who loved her so deeply. Maybe it was wrong to marry the old landlord as a concubine. But what of it? Fate had tormented her for over a decade. She didn't want to starve herself just to save food for her children. She simply didn't want to starve. She just wanted to survive. You can only blame this world, this cruel fate. I followed the palanquin all the way to a grand estate outside the town. I climbed up a massive tree and watched from afar as the palanquin entered through the back door of the manor. The status of a concubine is low. She has no right to walk through the main gate, nor does she have the right to worship heaven and earth. Only a half-hearted washing ceremony with wine. They call it welcoming a concubine, but in reality it is nothing more than finding a plaything. I watched from that tree for a long time until the sun set and lanterns were around and left, returning to my own 10,000 massive mountains, silently offering a blessing to that once innocent and carefree girl. But how could Doer, who grew up in the mountains since she was a child, fend off the schemes and power plays of a grand household because of what happened to Doer? I began to train even harder, hoping that in the future I wouldn't be forced by others to let them decide my own destiny. Determined, but unexpectedly after 1 year, a figure stumbled into the valley. Although her clothes were torn and her entire body was injured, she ran like crazy. I felt an inexplicable tension because in my mind, this person was Wong. God, I beg of you, save Doer. When I heard that cry, I instantly transformed into a white light and rushed out of the mountains. It was still the same hillside. Doer's parents and the mountain villagers were gathered around the dying girl. As my form appeared, everyone knelt to the ground, and Doer, who lay on the mat, looked at me. A pale smile appeared on her face, so faint and yet so heartbreaking. She must have been beaten with sticks. God, please save my family, Doer begged the old man, full of hope. But unfortunately, I cannot save humans. The beating was too severe and her internal organs were damaged. There is no cure. The people wept even more bitterly in their eyes. If even I say that she cannot be saved, then there really is no hope left. Doshir waved it off. There is no need to trouble everyone anymore. I want to lie on you. I look at the clouds in the sky, nod, and my tongue gently scoops up Doer's weak body. I place her on top of myself, curling into a circle to protect her, and we look up at the sky together. Thank you. And she was gone. I is both fragile and strong. At the same time, brief yet like eternity. Still the same quiet hillside. A new grave was built. I lie curled up next to it, just watching. Doer had left the mountain village and finally returned here. This is her final resting place. The Wang boy, who was covered in wounds, sat in front of the grave and muttered, household. That old man didn't treat her like a human being. The first wife bullied her every day. She beat her and abused her for no reason. She wanted to go home so badly, but Gu Guanwei wouldn't let her go. A few days ago, Gu Guanwei wanted to give her to old Zhao of the Xiao family. Doa refused, and on the orders of the first wife, she was beaten to death with sticks. By the time Doer's father and I arrived, she was already close to death. She had only dragged herself back with her last ounce of strength. I can't show any emotion, I am the only one who knows this rage. That evening, Brother Wong grabbed a cleaver. A human and a snake headed into town. The white snake has no fear of killing, and even less fear of any consequences. Those people killed Duoer. I have every right to avenge her. A snake's life must not be submissive. That night inside the manor of Landlord Go, apart from the hardworking low-ranking servants, there was not a single survivor. All the wounds were from snake bites. Just a little bit of my venom is enough to cause trouble for the young. Man, I don't think those people would dare to enter the 100,000 mountains to catch snakes. After returning to the mountain village, Wang Xiaoduo told her that he had already avenged her. In the future, he would also find a girl, marry and have children. On the next day, the local magistrate investigated the Go family's case. Then he went to Du's grave and saw me guarding the grave with his own eyes. After learning about the whole chain of events, the magistrate sighed. Even a beast in the mountains has feelings. When feelings are involved, the murder case can be laid to rest. Some people wanted to ask the government to step in, but their pleas fell on deaf ears. The stance of the county office was very simple. If you think you can do better, then do it yourself. I can tell you where the white snake is if you actually have the guts. Hearing that everyone remembered the case of the previous leader and everyone fell silent. I had no interest in any of that. Once a person dies, it's like a flame going out anymore. I stayed quietly in my own territory and cultivated for more than 10 years. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. One day I slowly shed my old skin. My body was already 8 meters long and I had become a true giant serpent, but in my own territory I faced another life and death struggle. It was a gray wolf that had gained intelligence and begun to understand cultivation. I wanted to grow stronger by devouring powerful prey. Once he realized I existed, he started provoking me over and over. I tried to lay low and stay out of sight, hoping the gray wolf would move on to another target, but he just saw me as a weakling. In the end, I decided to kill this annoying gray wolf. After making some preparations, the gray wolf arrived, drooling from his mouth just to provoke me. In his eyes, he believed that devouring me would make him stronger, so he didn't care at all about the location of our showdown. The two of us faced off. There was no testing each other. The moment the fight started, it was a matter of using my own body as bait to lure the gray wolf. In the very second that the wolf's jaws clamped down on me, I injected venom straight into his back. His fur, which was sharp as needles, stabbed right into me, and my mouth filled with blood. The gray wolf went completely feral at the taste of blood, but that only woke up the sleeping beast within me. In the end, I dragged the gray wolf into a deep pool. The instant he splashed into the water, the gray wolf knew it was all over. In the water, he had absolutely no way to fight back. The battle might have seemed short, but a whole half hour had actually gone by. My wounds, coupled with severe blood loss, left me completely drained. I desperately needed meat to devour. After gulping down a ton of pure wolf blood, I felt a burning heat surging through my stomach. Exhausted and severely injured, I blacked out completely. My massive snake body drifted downstream. Around the same time, the door of a thatched cottage by a picket fence opened and a kind, white-haired old lady stepped out. She was carrying West with a little yellow puppy just newly weaned, happily scampering behind her. Suddenly, the puppy started barking toward the West. At first, the old lady didn't pay any attention until she reached the river. But when she saw the massive figure lying in the shallow water, her wooden bucket slipped from her hands, hitting the ground with a loud thud. The old woman suddenly dropped to her knees and whispered some quiet words. Oh man, what a disaster. Why did a dragon suddenly crash out of nowhere? The gullible old lady actually mistook me for a dragon that had fallen from the sky, but unexpectedly. The moment she said those words, deep in the depths of my weakened soul, while I was still completely knocked out, some energy seemed to flow into me and I slowly started to recover. I don't know if this was the legendary mortal validation that demons crave so much. After the old lady bowed to me, she put all her strength into dragging me out of the freezing water. The mountain water was absolutely ice cold. Soaking in it for so long had made powerless. She dragged me out to let me dry in the sun, which accidentally sped up my recovery. She had absolutely no doubts about me being a dragon. The kind-hearted old lady even brought an incense burner out of her house and lit some incense right in front of me. She even found a bunch of grass and placed it under my head. After a few days I finally opened my eyes. Again, the moment I looked up, I saw the incense burner right in front of me, and the old woman was kneeling, bowing her head, along with a little puppy that was barking. When I looked at the old lady for the first time, I had this strange feeling, as if I owed her something. So I nodded my head 3 times to express my gratitude. The old lady was absolutely overjoyed when she saw the dragon nod at her. She immediately started making a bunch of wishes. She wished for a bountiful harvest and that her late husband would have a good reincarnation. But demons and humans don't belong together. I can't stay here for long, so I swam. I headed into the mountains, but I didn't go very far. Honestly, kindness. And I had to repay the favor. An old woman living all by herself? She must face so many hardships. I can help her out when the time is right. I remembered that ancient Chinese myth, the legend of the white snake, where a powerful demon who can control the weather actually gets married just to show gratitude, which is just way too extreme. Back then, she saved your life and now you can just save hers in return. Why worry yourself to death over it? So I settled down in a forest, not too far from the old woman's house. Half a year later, this remote paradise far away from the bustling cities was hit by disaster. Everything under the heavens long divided must unite. Long united it must divide once again. The fierce battles of the war eventually reached the edge of the 10,000 mountains. The government began drafting soldiers, and the wealthy landowners took advantage of the chaos to seize land and raise taxes. Meanwhile, self-proclaimed heroes started rising up, while the poor mountain villages had to resist time after time. Forced labor was conscripted, dragging away every able-bodied youth and man over 15 years old, leaving behind only a helpless group of the elderly, the weak, and women. A mountain village stripped of its young and strong men naturally became an easy target for bandits. One day as I was heading up like usual, climbing the mountain slope right behind the village, I used my thermal vision and saw that a massive fire had broken out in the village. A crowd of people was swarming around and wandered around aimlessly, and the ancient profession of banditry was brought back to life. In ancient China, this business was absolutely booming. You could basically say that anyone could join in, especially during chaotic times. They lived even more comfortably, totally free and without a care in the world. If they got lucky, they'd even be hired by the government and get themselves transformed into local officials. As I was thinking about this, I turned my body and parted the tall grass to head over to Grandma's house. But the bandits were already laying. Thugs came strutting right up to Grandma's doorstep, only to come face to face with a massive towering white snake. Before they could even scream or try to run away, I snatched them up in my mouth and violently flung them away. Monster with that terrified shriek. The rest of the bandits fled in sheer panic. Oh, divine dragon in the heavens, please save our village. We can barely survive anymore. A gray-haired old man was kneeling on the ground weeping bitterly. This sight was truly heartbreaking to watch. I just don't get why humans in this world have to suffer so much. I thought about it for a second, then shook my head. There are so many brutal thugs out there, and every single one is armed with knives, spears, bows, and arrows. If I actually charge in to help, I might end up getting killed myself and turned into rations. It's enough for me to just protect my benefactor. Being a hero isn't exactly easy. Besides, at the end of the day, I'm just a snake. It's already a good thing that I don't eat humans. There's really no reason to play the savior, so I just doorstep and watched from a distance as thick black smoke started rising from the village. The very next second, I suddenly spun around and bolted into the mountains as fast as I possibly could. I made sure that a world filled with monsters and cultivators who practice key. My thermal vision clearly showed that someone was flying in the air. Then the body temperature representing the lives of those bandits began to drop piece by piece. A dropping body temperature isn't just some mild fever. It means that people are dying and their bodies are slowly turning cold. Anyone who can fly in the sky is basically a god, and gods love nothing more than taming and exorcising demons. I had to desperately escape. A flash of white light zipped through the forest. Even though I made it deep into the mountains, the sheer panic in my soul didn't just go away. To survive, I can't afford to stop for even a single second. I run like my life depends on it. A pair of beautiful eyes from just outside the mountains stared. Snake vanished. My white shadow on the ground relentlessly crosses hills and rivers, following the stream that carried me out of the mountains. I keep fleeing upstream. Whenever animals sense danger, their very first instinct is to run back to their den. I feel the exact same way. If all else fails, I'll just hide at the bottom of the deep pond and hunker down there for 10 to 15 days. Little do I know, people up in the sky are flying around watching me with great amusement as I scramble to escape. Up in the sky, standing on a flying sword, are 3 people. If I saw that, my jaw would literally drop to the floor in absolute shock. I've dreamed about flying around on a magical sword countless times. Now that dream has actually come true, but someone else is doing the flying. 2. Children are clinging tightly to a woman. The woman is about 30 years old, possessing extraordinary elegance and wisdom, beautiful as a fairy from the ninth heaven. Let's see where this white insect is trying to run next. Master, kill her. Quickly. Boy and a girl with swords on their backs wear robes, with a white background and blue patterns and sky blue shoes. Their hair is tied up with jade hairpins like fairy children. From mythology, the woman smiles. Why should we kill her? This white insect harms the world in broad daylight. Killing her is not enough to appease the anger of the people. Who did she even kill? Who? Of course, villagers. Little brother. We arrived too late. The old woman fell victim to a cruel death. If you don't believe it, your sister asks. The little boy looks up at the little girl on the other side. The little girl thinks for a moment and nods. One Linling, reading books, is worth less than traveling the world. What you see with your own eyes is not necessarily the truth. I should have taken you both to the city more often. Not all humans are good people, and not all demons are evil. Villains who run wild are evil. The white snake kills evil people but has not harmed any innocent villagers. Tell me, is this snake despicable? Or those villains who are evil to their heads and say nothing? But deep down they still cannot accept the idea that demons can also possess goodness. Remember, think 3 times about everything. Do not be fooled by appearances. Yes, master, the woman seems to know what her 2 disciples are thinking. The white snake is in her. Return to the cave. Let's head down and check it out. Panting and out of breath, I rush back into the valley. I sigh in relief. This constant running has completely drained my strength. Incredibly exhausted, skillfully, I curl up on the ancient ginkgo tree. The branches of the old trees, which she often slithers and climbs on, are all worn smooth. The path into the mountains is too deep. I must absolutely not go out anymore. Up in the air, 3 people watched in amusement as the interesting white snake, the woman, looked around. Even though this isn't a sacred paradise, it's still a great spot. The aura is decent. For cultivators, it's not of interest. It's too strange to worry about. The deep pond in the valley and the surrounding rock ring. Spiritual energy. The ancient ginkgo tree is the eye of the array. This white snake has quite a bit of luck. With a flash, the 3 of them appeared on the giant rock beneath the tree. The little girl leaned forward curiously, reached out her hand and touched the stone that had been worn smooth by the white snake. I was stunned. Are these 3 deities or cultivators? Suddenly I was chased all the way to the old house and didn't know if I should run or if I should keep pretending to be an ordinary wild animal playing in the dark. My body reacted instinctively, bearing the 2 sharp fangs in my upper jaw. I hissed out a warning. The woman was beautiful, even more so if she weren't smiling at me. The little snake, who just condensed her ki, has a very high intellect. Interesting. When I heard that, I immediately gave up the aggressive stance I had just assumed. I quickly slithered down the tree trunk to the ground and curled myself up into a tight ball. My head and body were pressed flat against the ground, begging for mercy. What else? That those people's health bars were all floating in midair. That's a Jexian. I lowered my head and didn't dare to make a single move. I just hope these powerful figures won't take a lowly snake like me seriously. Right after that, my sharp sense of smell told me that someone had stepped right in front of me. My belly scales didn't feel any vibrations, which means this person is so powerful they can walk on snow without leaving a trace. It's important to know there are 3 people in front of me, yet I could only sense 2 children. As for the woman, I could only guess her direction by the scent patterns. She's watching me. This white snake is pretty ordinary, but also a little different. It's only slightly stronger than normal wild beasts. Most mountain spirits and wild monsters don't have high intelligence, but this white snake is extremely smart. I saw the sheer shock and confusion when it first saw us, the 3 of us, master and disciples, as well as its attempt to flee and play dead. And then after just 1 sentence from me, it got how interesting. Soon an amusing idea popped into the woman's mind. Little snake, come with me up the mountain and be a gatekeeper. In reality, the girl didn't actually mean to do this. She was just curious, trying to kill the boredom that comes with cultivation. Not because the beasts are smart, even though that the white snake is smart, but there are so many intelligent beasts in this world. What made her change her mind was the fine, smooth, beautiful scales of the white snake. After all, women love beautiful things like a pretty bracelet. Of course, she wanted to buy me. I raised my head and saw the woman's loving expression. I could only nod in agreement if I didn't agree, even though I was sure that she wasn't a bad person and had a good heart. But what if she wanted to make a snakeskin wallet? I have to say, people's hearts in ancient times were actually good. If she liked it, she'd take the whole snake home to keep guard, unlike on modern-day Blue Earth, where snakeskin gets turned straight into a wallet or shoulder bag to show off with all day long. Even thought it was fun to have another snake around. To a low-grade demon snake, you don't need to say much. The woman rolled up her long sleeves and pulled me inside. Everything went black and I passed out. The snake was treated like an object, a demon beast. When I woke up, I realized that I was already on the slope of a towering mountain. At first glance, I saw a massive rock 7 stories high. On it were 3 bold flowing characters: Shenhua Mountain, the clouds and mist of Mount Hua, rise into the sky while I sit among the 1,000 peaks of Kunlun. Thousands of peaks. I guess the heaven and earth are vast. I remember that in my past life I visited Mount Hua on the blue planet, but this mountain is even higher, bigger, and more dangerous than that high mountain. Originally I was pretty reluctant to be captured just to stand guard, but now it seems I actually got lucky. Have a great patron so I can live well. Even the things my master randomly throws away can benefit my snake. The woman led the 2 little sitting and laughing, and I followed closely behind the whole way. Even with my severe nearsightedness, I can tell how beautiful the scenery is. We walked along the stone road at the edge of the cliff. Everywhere there were large and small waterfalls. The water in the pools was so clear you could see the fish swimming. The steep cliffs towering endless. Peaks 10,000-foot deep canyons. Patrolling guards. The halls in the mountain are arranged layer upon layer like a celestial palace. I flicked my tongue and looked up at the sky. A massive diagram is slowly rotating. No wonder they don't fly up the mountain, but choose to walk instead. The sky is supposed to be the place you fly. On this stone mountain path, you're bound to meet someone in a Taoist robe with a white background and blue patterns. Older and younger monks are walking down the mountain, greeting the women and clearing the path for them. These monks look incredibly wealthy. Their robes are made of either silver or gold threads, and they carry extraordinary swords, giving off an aura of purity. These people and hold them, squeeze them. You can wring out 2 handfuls of grease out of them. On the way, I've overheard a lot of information. This is the Xunyang Palace. The woman is named Yurong, and she is the younger sister of the palace master. The little boy's name is Youngmok. The younger girl's name is Chuling, and she is Yurong's personal disciple. I heard that in the Xunyang Palace, Yurong only has these 2 disciples, and countless people are clamoring to get in, but it's impossible. It seems I've landed myself a wealthy patron. Soon, I reached the massive simple Pailu Gate. A dozen gatekeepers made me very nervous. Actually, written on the Pailu are 3 vibrant characters: Chunyang Palace. Don't know why, but after entering the mountain gate, I found that the air here was exceptionally fresh. I followed the 3 of them and wandered around. I passed by many places where disciples were practicing. Magnificent halls, stone bridges, and long corridors. After a long time, I reached a remote and quiet, magnificent palace. The palace. Clouds floated over the sea. Ancient pines are strong. I looked at the empty hall with only 3 people. Finally, I understand why they brought me back. Actually, they just want me to guard the door. No matter what happens, I don't have to worry about being turned into a purse, a shoulder bag, or delicious snake soup. That's always great. There's no need to bow and serve tea, nor is there any ceremony. They just grabbed a snake like me to guard the door. It's not like admitting a disciple, so there's no need to handle the formalities. Yurong said with a serious face, "This hall will be your living space from now on. Also make sure to handle the inspections of the nearby mountain temples. I've already notified the kitchen and the property management. You guys can head over to the kitchen to grab some food. But remember, you must not wander around aimlessly, or else no one will be able to save your life." Hearing this, I just kept nodding. She couldn't help but note in response, seeing how mystical this white snake really was. Yurong was very pleased with that. After that, about her own business, she started teaching the 2 disciples right then and there on how to cultivate. I just played dumb acting, like I didn't understand a thing, and found a spot in the hall, coiled up like a rope. I eavesdropped on the 2 disciples. Youngmok's attitude toward me is totally hostile. He keeps giving me these nasty glares. The little girl Shuling is especially mischievous. She keeps trying to touch my snake form, but suddenly I don't have to worry about hunting anymore, and I have no fear of predators either. It feels a bit strange. It's so peaceful and incredibly safe here. 1 begets. 1 begets, 2 begets, 2 begets, 3 begets, 3 begets, all creation. Those words sound so familiar. I'm sure I heard them in my past life. Even though it sounds simple, it's actually incredibly deep. Outside the hall, cranes are spreading their wings and clouds are swirling. Inside the hall, a white snake is openly stealing knowledge. And just like that, my life as a cultivator officially began. Every now and then I'd slither around the palace to scare off rats, head out to the open courtyard out front. I watch the 2 disciples of the downy feather practice. In the morning, I go to the cliff to swallow clouds and mist. Occasionally, I stare at the jade bottle on Hong's tea table. Inside are delicious elixir pills, but they aren't something a snake should eat. 3 days have past, I finally remember that I should eat something. I can't cultivate, but I absolutely have to eat. This is a lingering trauma from when I didn't get enough to eat as a kid. I leave the Luron Palace wearing a jade pendant around my neck. I slither my way to the kitchen. The jade pendant was given to me by Juron. I was worried the disciples in the palace wouldn't know the details and would kill a white snake on sight. I'm actually pretty happy with this. Being alive is always better than being killed. I slither over mountains, rivers, and small stone bridges. My snake tongue flicks out gently. Soon I catch the scent and arrive at the kitchen. The kitchen is massive. It has to supply food to everyone on the eat every day. That's true. But they still have to handle the meals for the ordinary low-level disciples and the workers on the mountain. It's super lively here. It's a bit like a huge cafeteria. From the size of the cafeteria, I estimate there are at least 10,000 people on the mountain, under the gaze of many. I slither into the dining hall. From a distance, I see a chubby uncle waving. Over here, little snake, come over here. I'm in charge of the arrangements. Confused, I head into the back kitchen for another round of gawking. Once I've done that, after what I've been through, everyone should know that there's now one more white snake on the mountain. The chubby uncle went to the back kitchen and got a large wooden tub. Ready, the tub is filled to the brim with lean meat and bones that aren't very easy to cook with, along with some fatty meat. Perfect, fatty meat is totally fine for snakes and rich in nutrients. I lowered my head and easily swallowed all the food in the bowl, then nodded to the chubby uncle. I turned around and slithered back, leaving the chubby amazement behind me. This is probably the first time in his life that he's fed anything besides a human. As I passed a stream, I stuck my tongue into the water to wash it. I made sure to watch the startled crane that flew up into a tree. I think it's best not to steal any cranes for now. Who knows who they belong to? At worst, I'll just sneak back here in the middle of the night to gobble them up. Then I'll slither back to the palace that belongs to Yurong and curl up on a giant rock right at the edge of the cliff to get some sleep while guarding the main hall. Nobody dares to step foot here. I don't think anyone would dare break the law around the main hall under Yurong's. Wing Yang is quiet and Gugu is lively. That little girl just couldn't wait. Ever since the white snake arrived, her eyes have been sparkling even more, and she's constantly looking for the white snake to play with. Just as I was drifting off, I heard someone walking by. I flicked my tongue and barely managed to sense that it was Yurong coming over, but something seemed to be terribly wrong. White snake, get to work. Yurong standing right in front of me, scolded the white snake. I flicked my snake tongue a few times and then completely lowered my head to go back to sleep, but then the illusion faded and Shiling appeared. Aw man, you figured me out again, seriously? That's no fun. This was just Shiling, who had transformed into the master's form just to tease me. At first I was startled, but I quickly noticed the flaw. The illusion was only meant to deceive the eyes. The scent of Shiling and Yu Wong is totally different. My snake instincts can easily tell them apart. Plus, Shiling's small stature and my infrared vision is way too obvious. I wandered around for a few days in the countless palaces and pavilions of Manhua. Finally, I've got a clear picture of the situation. The pure young palace is said to have been founded by a powerful immortal being and is the state guardian sect of the empire. It has deep roots and countless great masters. Many have achieved immortality. It is the undisputed #1 sect in the world. It is broadly of sect leader Li Shengyan and the 4 peers of the same generation as him, namely Ku Yu Zhongli of Spirit Void and Qiyun. And lastly, there is the Clear Void branch of Yurong. Normally, each of them guards their own peak. The place where I am right now is the Clear Void Palace. Just about everyone in the world has a childhood dream of joining the Pure Yang Palace, cultivating and achieving immortality. Unfortunately, the requirements are strict. Only 1 in 10,000 out of all humans, only a few can reach the mountains, and fewer than 1 in 10,000 can actually enter the gate. They are not the absolute best in the world, but they're the type whose spiritual energy bursts from the crown of their head. Even a coffin lid can't hold them down. Nothing can hold them back. The Pure Yang Palace is the leader of all the renowned factions, respected by the entire world for its righteous and honorable energy, its virtue, and its absolute integrity, whether dealing with evil cultivators or demons, as long as they protect the human realm. Having mountain is always a huge blessing. They eliminate evil with their righteous swords, but the most important thing is that they have absolutely no interest in worldly affairs or political power. This is exactly why the human emperors revere Pure Yang as their national guardian deity. After all, they only care about transcending the mortal world and becoming immortals, while also remaining incredibly passionate about purging evil. What a wonderful sect. It is truly a godsend for those in power. I think I've found myself a powerful backer to cling to this as the national guardian. Deity, after all, who would dare attack this mountain and cause trouble? As for me, I'm just a slacker who's waiting for the best. Blessed spot to practice diligently. I still have to butter them up so I don't get kicked down the mountain. Then Zheng and Shuling made a discovery. That lazy white snake has become a lot more active lately in the forests around the palace. Forget about rats, not even a single stink bug can be found. Its aura alone has terrified the rodents so much that there only guards the main hall. I actually found myself starting to feel quite a bit of pressure myself, working hard to clean up the surroundings in the palace belonging exclusively to Yurong's clear void. Lineage there are including Yurong, only 3 people, and a snake. They say she was brought back to guard the gate, but in reality she's just a pet kept for show. I don't have to guard the gate every single day, so in my spare time I start to think about how I can speed up my cultivation. There are so many opportunities on this immortal mountain, like catching the rich drifting scent of medicinal herbs from the Lingsu Palace. The Lingsu lineage focuses on the production of medicine, alchemy, talismans, and outstanding medical skills. It's the mountain dedicated to alchemy and the pure Yang sect. Don't go thinking that the disciples of the Lingsu lineage only know how to make pills but can't fight, because you'd be dead wrong. Alchemy requires a solid foundation. On top of their daily alchemy, treating illnesses and saving lives, kind of sword skills or treasures they want they can get, making them seriously rich and powerful. The white snake stared at the Lingsu disciples because they were so rich and powerful. Those guys are absolutely loaded. As long as she can scavenge some scraps here, there will definitely be some sweet rewards. It's just like a video game. High-level accounts don't care about trash, but that trash is a total treasure for low-level accounts. In front of the Lingsu Palace Hall, standing on a lotus stone seat, is a massive cauldron-like alchemy furnace. It is engraved with array formations, and from its 8 corners hang copper bells. I don't know. Not knowing what it meant to hang barrels on an alchemy furnace, I stared at the furnace for a long time. I couldn't see anything, so of course I just walked through the hall into the backyard. The 2 disciples guarding the hall didn't seem to notice, and so Xiao returned with news of a white snake. The news spread quickly through Painting Mountain. Back then everyone thought it was rare and delicate, but it was just a common white snake. It wasn't necessary, just a pet snake in the agonizing pain of failed alchemy. And that brings us to the point. I should thank the powerful swallowing ability and the terrifying digestive capacity of snakes. Anyone who knows anything about snakes knows this. Snakes can swallow prey that is much larger than their mouths, and this white snake itself belongs to the species that can digest skin, fur, and bones. The digestive process can take days or even dozens of days. You can see just how powerful their digestive and decomposition abilities are. I walk out in front of the alchemy room, ignoring the disciples from the neighborhood who gathered around out of curiosity. I head straight to my reserved spot. I curl up and wait quietly. Both alchemy and medicine are prone to failure. The resulting waste is unfit for consumption. Alchemy waste in particular is toxic and can easily cause a poisoning. Normally they are collected, logged, and then disposed of, but now there's a new use snake feeding. The senior disciple in charge at the newly delivered alchemy waste. He logged them with a brush and then set them aside. I opened my serpent's maw and aimed at the dozens of alchemy scraps in the porcelain bowl. With a powerful gulp, the alchemy scraps were sucked into my serpent's maw. Then I curled myself up, continuing to wait, relaxed. My ability to ingest things as a snake has been further developed. This cultivator smiled with satisfaction. This white snake is actually pretty useful. I don't have to dispose of the alchemy waste myself. These things have zero spiritual merit. I really don't get why anyone would eat them. Alchemy waste and leftover medicine are useless to humans. They even contain toxins. But for me, they're a nourishing tonic. Toxic is relative to humans anyway. Plus, I can use my sense of smell to tell what's safe to eat. I've been here at the Left Palace for almost 1 month now, collecting alchemy waste and leftover medicine. My cultivation keeps rising higher and higher. 2 female items. Hey snake. Hey big whitey, this is for you. I cringed on the inside, but obediently opened my mouth to swallow the pill. Low quality just means low potency, but to me it's already a top grade tonic. After all, who would eat trash when they can have pills? Wow, those scales are really pretty. The 2 female cultivators praised admiringly. Her eyes were fixed on the shiny scales. I just ignored her and didn't show any appreciation for the pills from those 2 beauties. Besides, they wouldn't dare mess with a wild beast anyway. Then came 2 more waves of worthless pills and a box of medicinal scraps. After eating it all, I turned away and left. Lately, my cultivation level has been skyrocketing. Those worthless pills, medicinal scraps, and the half-baked pills from those female Cultivators actually work wonders. After absorbing them, my entire snake body felt completely refreshed. If I ran into that gray wolf spirit right now, I wouldn't need my venom, nor would I have to flee into the water. Haha, I out right on the spot and drag him back to King Zagong. Without even looking, I coiled myself right onto the porous bone tree at the edge of the cliff while those two kids were still diligently practicing. Motionless, I digested the tonic medicine in my belly. Traces of medicinal power seeped through the blood vessels all over my white snake body. The next day, after waking up, I felt a strange tightness all over my body. I need to shed my skin. Zhuling, who was practicing her swordplay, cast a glimpse out of the corner of her eye and noticed something weird about the massive snake wrapped around the bone tree. So she stopped practicing her swordplay and walked over to check on me. What she saw absolutely terrified Zhuling. Master, something happened, the girl screamed, running into the backyard. Yangmo was clueless as he stared at the white snake. He also sensed that something was wrong. Jurin was currently meditating on a cushion and heard the scream. She had to open her eyes. Master, something has happened. Dafo is done. Immediately brought by her. Master to the ancient pine tree on the edge of the cliff. Master looked. Daba's entire body is dull and lifeless. Even its eyes are white. Zhuling pointed her finger at the white snake, her voice trembling as she sobbed. Yurong raised her hand to signal Zhuling to stay calm and then inspected and observed the snake closely, and with her years of experience she made a judgment on the current situation. She looked around and realized that the white snake's life force was still very much there. The strange thing was that compared to when it was first brought to the mountains, its life force was actually even stronger. What happened? While I was focused on my cultivation over the last few days, Yurong said softly, "Don't worry, Davi is perfectly fine. Maybe it's just undergoing a change." Zhuling let out a sigh of relief. Yangmu remained silent and expressionless. What on earth has this white snake eaten over the last few days? Yurong thought it over and believed there was no way the snake could have. It was more likely that it had eaten something good to boost its vitality and improve its cultivation. Zhuling and Youngmo looked at each other awkwardly. Wait, did you two feed the snake the monthly pills from the palace? Yurong's expression turned cold. No way. Lately Daibai has only been going to the Lingsu palace where it's eaten a ton of wasted pills and leftover medicine. Eaten. Or you who handles the discarded pills and leftover medicine must have had it a lot easier lately. He's eaten almost a whole bowl, right? Hearing this, the corner of John's mouth twitched. He who had seen and experienced so much quickly realized the truth. The absorption and digestive abilities of humans are just no match for a snake's. Discarded pills and leftover medicine are like a pure tonic for snakes. You see, the herbs used to make these medicines and pills are all highly nourishing and are used by cultivators to boost their cultivation and heal their wounds. Eating a whole bowl of that means rapid growth. Snake on the ancient pine tree. Not long after, the white snake on that sturdy ancient pine started to move, rubbing its head against the bark over and over. Soon the scales on its head split, revealing the fresh skin underneath. This is shedding. I slowly rubbed against the tree, using the branches to scrape off the old skin. First the head, then the body, so determined yet so slow. The three disciples, who usually had nothing better to do, stood at the edge of the cliff watching intently. Shedding is dangerous for a snake. If they fail, they will surely die. After 1 full hour, when the snake's tail finally slid out of the old skin, Zhuling clapped happily. Zhurong smiled, looking thoughtful. For some reason, after watching the snake's entire shedding process, there was a slight breakthrough in their understanding. In my state of mind, shedding old skin, gaining new life, all things have their own origin. After I shed my skin, I clung to the old pine tree and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up on this famous sect of leisure, I found my lifestyle. Kingyun Peak wrapped in clouds and mist at the edge of the cliff. When I'm hungry, I go to the kitchen to eat meat. I squat in Ling's palace to share their food. I cultivate myself and then return to the main palace to guard the gate and sleep. These days are incredibly peaceful. Zhuling noticed that I had been frequently visiting the Tai Square. Lately, the Tai Square is where the disciples of Purion Palace practice martial arts viewed from above. The square is a giant bagua diagram. In the center is a massive yin-yang fish. The square is huge, at least the size of 10 football fields. I suspect that it is highly likely a powerful master used magic to level a mountain peak directly. Thousands of disciples practice swordsmanship on the square. The sword ki surges like mountains, like seas, and like the wind. Some disciples practice sword formations while others rest. Nearby, swordsmanship is practiced. Here, you can feel the intense pulse of the sword ki and wars. When your hands itch for a fight, you can spar with your fellow brothers and sisters. The key is that the top disciples of all lineages come to the Tai Square to teach martial arts. Today, the following is being taught, the head disciple of Li Sungyan from the Jade Void lineage. He has been known as the most handsome man in the Pure Yang Palace for 6 years, the dream partner of almost every female cultivator in the Pure Yang Palace. He has countless secret admirers. Chuja, wearing a Taoist robe and a jade crown on his head, he holds a sword in his hand and seriously teaches the young disciples the practice and memorization of the sword arts. Your movements should be like a dragon coming out of the water and as still as a cat catching a mouse. In motion your hands. Separate yin and yang and your body conceals the Bagua. While explaining the sword art, he occasionally turns his head and looks at the white snake beside him. I've never heard of monsters being able to learn from teachers, so nobody really cares what the white snake is doing. This training square is where low-ranking disciples practice martial arts, the place where high-level disciples train. Even if the white snake went there, she wouldn't be able to understand it. She wouldn't even be able to hear it. To practice martial arts, a good foundation is the most important thing. So she stayed on the training square to learn martial arts. After staying for a long time, she slithered back to the back mountain. New disciples entering and leaving the mountain gate not only have to go to the training square to practice swordplay, but must also come to the back mountain to meditate and cultivate, training how to perform cultivation techniques and enter the true world of cultivation. This back mountain is actually massive, covered in large and small open clearings and stone platforms, with waterfalls and streams